Hi everyone, it's Leigh here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to make a little journal from a paper bag. So first I'm going to take a mushroom bag, or you can use any paper bag with a gusset in it. That's going to be the base of my journal. And if you watched my video where I altered the ugly papers, I'm going to use a couple of them to cover it in. Yeah, I will need to use two. So the first thing I'm going to do is on the other side. That one came out easier than this one. Okay, so that is going to be the flap. I'm going to cover it in paper, so that'll be come across like that, and then that will be a pocket. Okay. So first I'm going to cover my bag in paper, and then I'm going to stitch around it. Now, I did see this idea from, I think it was Anne on Adulcina Craft, which is the name of her channel. I will link her video in my video description box, as I always do. And if you want to watch my video where I altered these papers, there's a link for that video in my video description box as well. So that bag, or that paper, is almost the perfect size for the bag. It'll be big enough. Not quite. So I just need to make sure I get it down on the edge. And I'm going to have to put a little strip of something or other else on there, or maybe fold that in a little bit. I think that's what I'll do. I'll just adjust that a tiny little bit. That way I don't have to patch. Okay, that's one bit done. And I'm not gluing in the center because, as she pointed out, it gives a nice feeling to the cover when the papers aren't glued on all over. So when the glue just covers the edges, you'll see what I mean. You have, and especially like if you were to glue everything down all over, when you go to fold it, you get that creasing that happens. Place this one over the top. I guess it doesn't matter if a little bit of the paper bag shows around the edge. It is just a junk journal, of course. So yeah, I should have cut that off before I stuck the second piece on. Okay, so that's a tip. Trim the first page before you, the first piece of paper before you stick on the second one. And I will sew around the edge of this. Alrighty, so that's trimmed up now, and it's ready to be stitched around on the three sides. So we need to leave this open for the pocket. But what I want to do before I stitch it is to put some paper inside there, just to hide the brown. And you can either use a contrasting one or the same paper, and it only needs to be a narrow strip. So the way I'm going to attach it is to fold it, cut it to the length that I need, and then fold it in half. So this is the bit that I trimmed off. So I might swap them over to the opposites. put the bit off the front on the back of the pocket and vice versa. Okay, so I'm just going to work out where that's got to go. Make sure this piece is long enough. Yeah, so that just covers that in there. And glue that on. So I'm just going to use art glitter glue. It's just easier in this little bottle to poke the nozzle in underneath the edge of the paper. So I'm just going to square it up again, put some pressure on that, and then do the same to the front. And I'm going to do the same for the back. Okay, so that's ready to be sewed. Okay, that's been sewed around now. So been around the sides twice in the end and stitched once over the opening of the pocket. So now I'm going to fold it, and what I'll do on the flap side is I'll create like a little micro spine sort of thing, just so there's a little bit of room for the pages to expand out a little bit. So I'm just eyeing that. I'm not taking any particular measurements. At the moment it's sort of looking a bit like an envelope. And I'm just going to use my bone folder to crease those folds, make them nice and sharp. And that's where I'm going to sew my signature in. So I've got a few laces and trims and things out, and I'm going to start decorating the front cover. So that is the little spine that I created by folding that flap a second time, just to give it a bit of wriggle room inside there for when things get stuck into the pages, if they do get put in. So I thought I'd just add some bits of decorative paper onto the cover, but they end up being covered over anyway. Don't worry about it if you're going to make one of these. Don't worry about putting the paper on, unless you're going to decorate it wholly with paper. And the next thing to do is to add some fabrics if you're going to decorate it the same way I did. And just for the speed of this video, I'm using a glue gun, hot glue gun. I wouldn't have used that otherwise. I just did it because it dries fast. But I would normally use art glitter glue or Fabri-Tac, something like that. So I hope those noises aren't coming through on the microphone. There's some roadworks going on just outside my house. They always seem to pick the perfect time to make noises out there. But hopefully it's not coming over on the microphone. Through the microphone, I should say. So what I'm doing is just auditioning bits and pieces and finding things that go together. I'm trying to keep it reasonably neutral. I don't have a spatula, if you're wondering why I'm rolling that jar over the glued objects. I've burnt my fingers already, so trying to avoid it. And I want to flatten down the glue so it doesn't create too much bulk on the front of the book. I found it easier with this chain of daisies to glue a couple down and then glue a couple more rather than try and get the whole lot down together. That's just a piece of like a cotton lawn sort of fabric that I stamped, and then I've made it into a ruffle, and I've got a bit more of that fabric that I put down the side on the edge there. So I think I've put this little rose here as a focal point on the front, and now I'm going to cover up the flap with some lace. And just trying to work out what else to put on there. And I have this, it's like a snippet roll I guess, but it's just scraps of fabric sewn together. So I'm going to put a piece of that on that end bit. Another one of those little flowers up on the flap, up the top. And that pretty much completes the cover. I'm making my signature out of A4 coffee dyed papers, and I have 6 sheets there, and I'm just going to tear them down or cut them down to size, and then I'll stitch them in. I'm going to sew them in using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I have my awl to make my holes. I've got a darning needle and some embroidery floss for my to sew with. And what I'll do is I'll get all my pages lined up, and then I'll poke some holes in them. So with this one, because it's only a simple single signature, I'm not worried about measurements. I'm just going to eyeball it. So I'll put one hole roughly in the middle, and then the other holes will go about 1 inch in from either end. And I'm just using that that clip there to hold the papers together so they don't move around. Once I get those holes in the papers, I'll pop that signature into the crease of the book, and then I'll make the holes on the outside. If you were doing several signatures, I'd recommend making a template to do this so that you got them all the same length. It looks tidier. Okay, so my holes are in there. I've got my thread. So I'm just going to go through the middle hole and out through the spine. Just leave a little bit on the inside so it doesn't pull through. Then you go up to either one of the other holes, so to the top one or the bottom, it doesn't matter which one you choose. So I sort of lost my hole there a bit, so it's really easy to work that out. You just lift up the paper and have a look, and then realign the needle, and that's through there. The next place you put the needle is all the way down to the other end, and I'm just clipping the end of the thread so I don't pull it out. So going through the bottom one. So I'm out through the cover, and then we go back into that middle first one, And try not to put your needle through the original stitch that you put in there. You don't want to split your thread, because it just makes it a little bit harder to tension it off if you've sewn through the thread. Okay, so I'm just going to tension that. So there's the 2 stitches on the outside. Pull them tight, but not so tight that it bends the paper, bends the book in. So you need to have each end on either side of that middle thread, so one on either side. And you're going to tie a knot around that long stitch. And I'm just going to leave a bit of a tail hanging down. Okay, so that's all in there nicely. Now, some things that you could do with those pages is round the corners or tear the edges. It's up to you if you want to decorate. At this point I'm going to leave everything plain. We've got the pocket there inside the front cover, and we've got 24 pages with writing space or decorating space, so that's all ready to go. And I'm not worrying about them not being the same size. I like the raggedy look of them. So now I want to put a closure, so I'm going to put an eyelet on that flap. So I'm just eyeballing it. So I'm going to put a hole roughly in the middle of the flap, put an eyelet into it, and then I've got some seam binding that I'm going to use as my tie. I've chosen a brown eyelet that has, sorry, not brown, it's a brassy colour eyelet, and it has a longer shaft on it, and I need a longer one to actually get through all the layers that are on there. So there's probably, well, there's 3 layers of paper, and there's probably 3 or 4 layers of fabric. I'm just going to press that in. And now I'll attach that pink seam binding that I can wrap around and use as a closure. I'm just using a slip knot to attach it, and I think I probably should have cut it slightly longer. It's just a little bit too short. So just wrap that around twice and then tie it off with the other little bit, and Bob's your uncle. There's a little paper bag journal. So that only took about, I suppose, about 45 minutes to make. So the cover's pretty with all those fabrics on it. We've got 24 pages inside it, and then there's a pocket in the back of the front cover. Okay, so that's the completed little book, ready to be fitted out with pockets and trims, so, or maybe just left as a notebook. Entirely up to you what you do with it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you have a go at making one of these. They're very easy to make, and I think the hardest bit is probably getting a paper bag. So that was the only paper bag that I had in my stash that had that gusset in it, that was small enough to use it, I should say. Okay, till next time, happy crafting. Hugs and cheers from Australia, as always. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and we'll see you in the next video. Hooroo! Oh, and let me know if you make one of these, how it worked out for you. Bye!